Okay, just waiting to see if people are going to join the live. Now, what I haven't done is actually set this up so that it lets me know if someone has actually joined. So, if you are in the live, please can you say hello in the comments? Let me know that you're here. Oh, hello, Gemma. Oh, great. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna get started now. That's really given me confidence. So this is my very first LinkedIn live, and it is really late in the evening here. It's about 11:30 p.m. I'm in Chennai right now, and I am doing a sustainability evaluation on an education project. So I do quite a few of these across the world, and I thought that the topic of today, I could make it on designing for sustainability. Now, I had said that it was going to be an informal chat about sustainability, but I lied. I'm sorry. I was nervous. It's my first time doing this, and my crutch is my whiteboard or slides. And so there's going to be slides today. I hope you don't mind. Um, but okay, let me add these to the stage. So this is just to welcome you all. I think we have one or two more people that are going to be joining. But yes, Ria's here. Thank you, Ria, for joining us. So I was just telling Gemma that we're going to be going through designing for sustainability, and I've prepared some slides. I have put a timer, so we shouldn't go over the 15 minutes. But let's get started. So hopefully I'll be able to go through a couple of things that I wanted to put across on sustainability. You may have come across this before. If you haven't, it's great. So there'll be two new tools that you'll learn today. So, the very first thing with anything, we have to be clear, because if you don't know where you're going, you don't know when you're lost. And there's always an optimal way of doing anything. So, part of designing for sustainability or for designing for anything, in fact, you do need to look at what is the best approach to actually take. And with the business landscape being as dynamic as it is as well, it is important to make sure that we are clear and that we are sense checking as we go along. And this isn't helpful because my headings are actually hidden by my overlay, but I'm going to try and guess at what that is. I think it's stakeholder management strategy. So, the very first thing in projects is to make sure that you understand who the stakeholders are. So, there's two things to actually do. One is identifying, and the second is actually in assessing. So, the identifying is to make sure that you understand who has an interest in the success or the failure of the project. And there are two types of those stakeholders. You have the internal ones, and it could be people working on the project team. If it's an organization, it could be the leaders in the organization. And you also have external as well. It could be the client or maybe the community. There's various types of stakeholders. Now, we always make sure that we understand what the size of their stake is, because when you have situations, so especially for me that does a lot of education sustainability evaluations, or even just monitoring and evaluation or advising on like national education projects, you'll have situations where there's multiple stakeholders. So it's important to know how to prioritize them, because unfortunately, some you will want to try and delight, others you will just need to satisfy. and there may be some that just need to be tolerated. And that's a sad truth that is there, but it's just one of those things. There isn't the bandwidth to make sure that everybody's completely happy, and it's to make sure that you again are making sure that you are going or getting clear on who are the ones that need to be delighted. And as we go through the slides, I'll explain why that is important. So prioritizing stakeholders is about assessing their interest against their influence or their needs as well. So who has the biggest need? Now, again, if you have a situation where there are multiple stakeholders, an engagement strategy is going to be key to make sure that you are able to map the different outcomes that they actually want, and making sure that we are starting with the end in mind as well. And one tool that I really like to use a lot is actually reverse engineering. And it's like starting with the end and working backwards to see all the different steps that need to be taken, the different approaches that would be available, and then from there making the selection as to which one is the most optimal. But because you've already mapped it as well, it gives you an opportunity to be able to deviate, because as we know, nothing ever goes to plan. So, the first rule in project management is replan the plan. And if you already have the established routes, it almost like forms like a little bit of a mitigation where you can know what your alternatives are as you go along. So once you've identified the stakeholders, you've been able to look at how to prioritize them. Then you want to capture, what does success look like for them? It may be very different to the different stakeholders. And we always look at outcome measures of what do they expect to see. So that's the minimum expectation. Otherwise, if you don't reach that minimum, then that could really cause reputational damage, because that's what they expect you should be able to do. So usually it's an indication as well of what is readily available in terms of skill and production in the market. So what they expect to see, what they would like to see. So, when they engaged with your services, or perhaps when you started off with the project, the desire was to do X, Y, or Z. So that's what you would like. But you would also have what you would love to see. And that usually is around things like deep transformation. And that's where you go from just from outputs to outcomes, and seeing how the impact basically, creates massive transformation. So we're going to be looking at a tool today, if you haven't come across it before, and it's one that it's a methodology that actually helps with thinking through on how change actually needs to happen. And that's the theory of change. And it's the backbone that we actually use in intervention or in monitoring and evaluation structure. I'm going to refer to it as M&E from now on. And you'll see why in a minute. So why should we use theory of change? Because business is not based on guesswork. I mean, we can do trial and error, mostly error, but again, that's not an optimal approach to take. And I think that the way business is now, there's very low tolerance to actually getting things wrong. And also, if you are trying to at least make sure that you are going to achieve the expect to see, you can't do guesswork. So theory of change helps with monitoring to control the outcomes. And planning is a yardstick for control. So if you haven't planned it, you really can't control it. So looking at the different areas now that you would look at, and I've added uptake in the middle there because it's something that tends to be ignored a lot, but is actually quite important. So you would have your inputs, and inputs are important in as far as making sure that you understand what the business is organized to achieve. So, when you look at it in terms of strategy, and I love the strategy. What's the strategy that I was thinking of? The VRIO. So is it valuable, rare? Can it be imitated? And are you organized? Like a lot of people think, they just need to have an idea that, is rare. Nobody else is doing it, or it's very difficult to imitate for whatever reason. Maybe it's, some kind of innovation that nobody else has got. It's not common knowledge on how to actually do it, and so for a while it's going to be blue ocean. That's well and fair and good, but are you organized to be able to explore and exploit it? That seems to be the downfall of a lot of companies, where they get an idea and they think this is great, we're going to implement it, but they haven't actually looked internally to say, are they organized enough to be able to deliver on it? So do they have the capabilities? Do they have the skill sets available? Can they get them readily? Can they afford to get them as well? And also, do they have the capacity? So what other activities do they actually have on, like business critical activities that they can't put on the back burner? It's something that has to be delivered alongside this new idea. So those are the inputs, so the resources, which can be human, material, and the like. Now, those resources, or the level of availability of those resources, will impact on the outputs, and it could be on the timing of the outputs. If you don't have as many people, maybe it'll take you twice as long to do something. Or if you have if you don't have resource constraints, maybe it'll take you a less amount of time to actually do something. Or also on, thank you, Ria's just said, startup struggle. That's absolutely correct. And my time has just gone. I've actually done 12 minutes. I can't believe it. That's absolutely correct. So these kind of like skill sets. Now, for most seasoned professionals, they would have come across this knowledge at some point over their careers. And maybe they would not have had the knowledge to say that this is part of a methodology, but definitely it's something that they would have learned and maybe would have applied to what they're doing in the workplace, and maybe just didn't have the terminology around it. But yes, the outputs and how we are capable of delivering on those really depends on the inputs. Do we have the right people? Do we have the right skills? Do we have the cash flow runway to be actually able to deliver on this? Now, the third one, I'm going to go to the middle there, which is uptake. So as you start to implement it, we should be starting to do monitoring and evaluation to look at what is the level of adoption of it. And there's far too many times, and I've seen this in big companies as well, in corporate companies with as many resources as they could ever want. But it's in using the approach where we're just going to implement it and hope for the best. And if it's not successful, then oh well, very disappointed, and we'll take it as lessons learned. But people don't realize that you have an opportunity to actually not have to deliver by default. You can actually deliver by design. And if you are capturing data at different intervals, and depending on the length of the project, whether it's going to be over a couple of weeks, if it's a month or a couple of months long project, or whether it's going to be monthly or quarterly if it's a longer project, you have an opportunity to be able to check at different checkpoints to say what's working, what's not working, and then implement another intervention. Like I said at the beginning, replan the plan to make sure that you're always working towards the goal. So assessing the uptake is really key to see, have you actually got it right? And then context is another area that tends to be avoided a lot, maybe not used as much. And this is looking at the external environment, looking at the climate, looking at the landscape, and seeing how it's affecting the plans. Again, because the business landscape is really dynamic, we have to do this periodically. We have to make sure, and depending on the industry that you're in will determine what kind of intervals you need to be looking at this. But it has to be an evolving activity where you're looking at it to say, does this still work? Do I still need to be doing this as well? Or have either the goalposts shifted so far that it no longer makes sense? It's no longer, it may still be feasible to do, but it's no longer viable to actually do it. So the benefits no longer outweigh the disbenefits of actually doing it. So making sure that you understand, and I put a post on LinkedIn a while ago, and it was on making sure that you know what could blow you up. And that's really important because it's, be able to recognize the shifts that are happening and seeing what could blow you up positively or negatively as well. And to actually make sure that you are adjusting your business, your projects, your outputs and delivery accordingly. So the outcomes are the final, the measurement that you would have done in the beginning, where you were looking at what the success criteria is for the different stakeholders and seeing has it been achieved. The outcomes should be something that you have been able to do if you are actually making sure that you're putting in the work to do the M&E, to put in place the interventions that are required to get you to where you need to go. So unless something really catastrophic happens with the context, it shouldn't be out of reach to be able to get the outcomes with 99% assurance. There's nothing that's ever 100%, but with 99%. And we're very close to the end of the slide, so please bear with me. So the other two areas Les talked about with M&E is looking at the strategy and direction. So are you doing the right thing? Again, this is something that will be evolving as things change, as the landscape changes, and it's dynamic, so your plans should be dynamic as well. And then also the management and governance, are you doing things right, which is around efficiency. There's different types of efficiencies, the cost, the labor, the materials, and making sure that there is a proper management in place. And like for me on education projects especially, is making sure that the funding is, or the training is in place to make sure that there is continuity in terms of repair and maintenance. So whether that is cash flow that's available to be able to repair products, making sure that the technical specification of whatever was in that education project. So a lot of them are technology based. And if it is going to be in a community that, is a poor community, going in and putting in technology that's all bells and whistles is not a good thing. You might want the best for them, but they may not have the type of funding that would be required to actually buy the spare parts. So then it doesn't become sustainable if the tech spec doesn't actually match the circumstances of the community that you're actually putting it in. So making sure that you have been clear from the very beginning when you're actually designing this. And I think this is my second last slide. You'll be happy to know. And it's a quote from General Sun Tzu. And unfortunately, if you're going to be attending a lot of my LinkedIn lives, this is probably going to come up a lot. General Sun Tzu from The Art of War, and also Deming. I love their quotes. So General Sun Tzu had said, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory, and tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So what is strategy? Strategy is a plan. It's like knowing this is where we need to go. It's like a destination. But the tactics are the methods, the approaches that you're going to use to actually get there. And so there's always a lot of talk on, we need to get a strong, robust strategy in place, but there's less of the work that's actually done on the tactics of how you're going to get there and monitoring those tactics to make sure that they are going to deliver at the end. Thank you very much. I've gone over time just slightly, but I'm open to answering any questions if anyone has any, but thank you so much for attending as well. I really appreciate it. I'm not seeing any. So I do have one last thing. Okay. Oh, it's gone. There it is. So if you did find it informative, please can you answer with a yes or no in the comments? That will just help me to improve, to make sure that I am going to be delivering on content that people actually find useful. So if you could let me know, and I'll go back to the comments to just have a look at that. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Doris, as well. And there's a time lag in the comments. Thank you, just seeing that. And yes, and very informative. Thank you guys. I really appreciate that. That's fantastic. And yeah, that's my first LinkedIn Live done. And I've committed to doing them every Tuesday because practice gains mastery. So this is the most awkward it's ever going to get. It's just going to get better from here. And the algorithm loves it. So I'll be doing these every Tuesday for 15 minutes and hopefully I'll get better at the timing. But thank you very much. I hope you have a good evening. It's near midnight now where I am, so I'll soon be going to bed. Have a great day tomorrow. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.